Hello, everyone. I am coming on today for my second Maker Chat Live. I'm still trying to figure out the best, most fun name for these live sessions. But these are a place for me to connect with other makers and introduce you guys to other makers and designers, and just have a fun little chat on Saturdays. I don't even know if it's all going to be on a Saturday, but today we're going to go live with Fides of Azramati Designs. So when she hops on here, I'll be able to bring her into the live. But yeah, so this should be really fun and exciting, and we'll get to have some good conversations with other people. But I hope you guys are doing great. And actually, I forgot to grab my coffee, so that's what I'm going to go do while we wait for her. I'll just take this with me. But yeah, thanks for joining in. I am going to save these. So where is my coffee? As we go on the quest for coffee. Let's see. Yeah, and I don't see her on yet, so we're just going to hang out until she gets here. Oh, there she is. Let's see if we can get her to request to join our live. I may be able to do that. Let's see. Let's see, Fides, if you're on here, if you can request to join, and just click the little video button and I can bring you in. Oh, there she is. And if you guys have any questions that you would like us to talk about, you can pop them in the question box. Hello, hello.
Hello, can you hear me?
I can. How are you?
I am so good, thank you. And you?
Good, good. I'm doing great this morning. I had to get my dog to stop trying to play with me for a few minutes so that I can do this. I feel like for some reason he gets more worked up if I'm like talking to my phone, because he's like, you're not giving me any attention, so I'm going to get all up in your business while you're trying to talk.
I see that.
Yeah. All right. So I would love if you just wanted to take just a minute to just introduce yourself and your business and all of that. So just kind of a general overview of who you are.
Yeah, sure. I am Fides. I am the maker of Azramati, and I'm a designer and maker, and I design size-inclusive crochet patterns. And I create one-of-a-kind pieces, which I sell in my online shop and usually at festivals too. And I use only secondhand materials and yarns and only secondhand hardware, and everything I use is secondhand to create new and one-of-a-kind stuff.
That's awesome. And we're going to talk a lot about that too, because I found that extremely interesting. As someone, I try to not have as much waste with the stuff we make, but I have not ever gotten the chance to use secondhand yarn. So I think that's super, super interesting. So how did you get started crocheting? Just kind of the very, very beginning.
Well, the very beginnings I learned in school, but these were only like very basic stitches, like single crochet and maybe chain stitches, and that's it.
Okay.
And I remember that back then I went home and tried it at home, and even though nobody could help me of my parents because they didn't used to know how to crochet or knit or anything like that, I just experimented with it, and yes, I really enjoyed doing that. But when I grew up and went through my adolescence, I stopped crocheting. Yeah.
Yeah, and when did you pick it back up? So I was the same way. I started in like high school, but then I didn't pick it back up until years later.
Okay. Yeah, I think I started in 2017 again. So it's not that long ago, actually.
Yeah. Did you, when you picked it back up, did you follow patterns? Did you use YouTube? Like, what were some of the ways that you started growing your skills?
Um, I actually didn't even know about crochet patterns at
Yeah.
all. I didn't know that they existed. And I I tried using those very few stitches I knew
Yeah.
to make something. And when I really messed up, I just did my research on YouTube actually and
Hmm.
watched several videos and stuff because I didn't even know the names of stitches,
Yeah.
even though I have been using them before. But yeah, and then I tried to learn some specific lace stitches and
Hmm.
I used them in so many different ways, like in the round or just
Yeah.
linear or many different kinds. And then I kind of learned through experiencing myself and
Yeah.
through making mistakes and stuff like that, actually.
That's awesome. So when you picked crochet back up and you started, learning these new stitches and learning all of these new skills, um, did you start by creating stuff for yourself, or did you start by creating these kind of custom pieces for other people?
Yeah, actually, I started making custom stuff. Like in the very beginning, it used to be presents and gifts for
Hmm.
friends. And yes, I actually only made one or two clothing items for myself until today.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's, I know for me, and let me know if it's the same for you. Um, when I started designing, I started making more for me. And it was a big switch because I went from only making product to sell to designing things. And I was like, well, that means I can keep some of this stuff.
Yeah, that's amazing actually. It's
Yeah.
making stuff for yourself kind of gives you a different drive and
Hmm.
motivates you in a different way. So that's something I experienced, especially when I started taking crochet and my small business a little more serious. I
Hmm.
learned that making stuff for myself really keeps me motivated and
Yeah.
reminds me of how much I love wearing what I make. And yeah.
Yeah. Do you feel like it makes it easier for you to to market and like sell your finished products because you love wearing them so much? Like if you go to a festival or something, do you feel like that comes out when you're talking to people about your designs?
Definitely, yes,
Yeah.
definitely. I've been only to festivals in Germany yet, and I don't want to offend anyone, but many people are quite shy with what they wear,
Hmm.
and then people often talk to me and said something like, "Oh, you are wearing this, but I couldn't wear this on myself." So
Yeah.
they are very not so open.
Hmm.
And when we went to a little more like cooler festivals,
Yeah.
if I can say so, where people actually wanted to celebrate and party and dance, they always seem to be a little more welcoming and a little more,
Yeah.
yeah,
That's true.
motivated to try the stuff than, for example, like traditional crafting markets, because then
True.
people always were like, "Oh, that's very revealing what you make"
Yeah.
and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I like that, and people are just a little shy.
Yes. Do you only make clothes, like wearable items?
Yes, I sometimes just as presents I make some things like accessories or bags, but
Hmm.
it's not really my passion, to be honest.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that makes sense. I mean, I think it's wonderful that you have found that niche that you like. Because I think a lot of people struggle with that of, they feel like they have to make everything in order to be successful instead of just kind of following what you're passionate about. I would love to know for someone who's struggling like that, for someone who says, well, I feel like I have to make hats and I have to make scarves and I have to make all of these other things that maybe I don't want to make. What would your advice be to them, to maybe make them feel a little better about saying, you can do what you want to do?
Just like you said, I think it's very normal as crocheters and maybe knitters as well that people are coming to you and they are like, oh, you knit or you crochet. Please make me a blanket. And
Yeah.
you are like, no, no, I don't make blankets, for example. Just for
Yeah.
example, some people do. And I am making clothing. And I have to say that it just do what feels right for you, because it's the only thing that will make you keep on doing what you do. Because if it's not so much fun for you, like for me, for example, making things that are not clothing items, I don't really want to keep on doing it, and I just do it like once or twice, but it doesn't really light me up in the
Yes.
same way as when I'm making clothing items. And you have to be patient with yourself and also with other people to get used to it, and to get used to what you have to offer. And
Yeah.
if you really love what you're making, you will have more success than if you sell something you actually don't really love making. And yeah.
That's so true. Yeah, I agree. That's awesome. And I love that you said that it lights you up because you see it in you. Like when you talk about your clothing, you see the smile, like you see the genuine, feeling that you have for what you make. And I think that sometimes as creators, when you start thinking about turning it into a business, it does turn into like, well, I have to make money. And I think sometimes there is that balance of like, well, if you're making things you don't like just for the money, then you're not going to have that genuine excitement about your product. So there is a balance there of like, okay, I'm not going to make hats because I'm not excited about them, but I'm going to make what I love and be really excited about it. And then that's going to show, and it's going to be infectious, I think, especially if you're selling items in person.
Yes, I think so too. And you just left your full-time job, didn't you?
Yes, I did.
Congratulations. That's amazing.
Yeah, it's been, I know that there's a lot of, I think especially, and we'll talk about this too, because I know for you, this is full time, correct, for you right now. And, I would love for you to talk a little bit about, you know, um, I know you're working on a van, which is super exciting. And so I would love for you to talk a little bit about that, about how, you have created this life for yourself that's going to allow you to take what you do on the road, and a little bit about how that's going to work for you full time, working from this remote vehicle.
Well, it's a process, right?
Yes.
So yeah, I think it was in February or January that we decided to leave the apartment
Mm-hmm.
we lived in, um, simply because of the fact that we couldn't afford enough money to hold the apartment. So we had this dream of living in a van quite some time before, and we just had to get into this very complicated situation to make this decision, I think.
Mm-hmm.
And it's still evolving in many
Yeah.
kind of directions, because one, we live in a half finished van right now,
Mm-hmm.
which is parked in the backyard of my in-laws in
Mm-hmm.
Hungary. And two, we spend most of the time working on the van, which
Mm-hmm.
makes me being self-employed a little more difficult when it comes to time management.
Yes.
But the goal is that when we are finished, despite for the fact that we have to find places to sleep and we have to travel, so my partner can find work too,
Mm-hmm.
I will have all the time for crochet and for
Yeah.
designing. And this is what we are working for, and this is the direction we want to go. And I really am happy to get there as
Yeah.
soon as possible. So yeah, I can't really talk from experience at that point because it's still in between the different phases, and I am very happy and grateful that we did that step. But at the same time, it's very exhausting to do
Yes.
so much work and research and planning, and yeah, planning where to spend the limited amount of money we have saved up for the van, and still working on my Azramati stuff and designing and coming up with new ideas.
Yeah. So how long have you been doing this full time?
Um, yes, I think when we left the apartment in March, I stopped working other jobs. And before I
Okay.
used to work in like 1 to 4 different side hustles next to my brand.
Okay. What were some of the things that you did? Were there any that you feel like you might do again, or was it all just to keep working and paying for your apartment?
Yeah, just to keep working and paying for the
Yeah.
rent, actually. It was,
Okay.
I've been working as a barkeeper, and then when COVID started
Yeah.
to be more present, I switched to a coffee roastery, which
Okay.
was absolutely amazing,
Yeah.
but just not the kind of art stuff I want to do full time. And I also additionally worked babysitting in the afternoons after my coffee roastery job. I went babysitting, and then
Okay.
in the nighttime or on the days or weekends, I worked with my brand. So yeah.
Yes. Yeah. And I think it's so funny because I feel like anytime I've asked someone who wants to go full time with their craft, and or someone who has, and you ask their advice, it's usually that even if you have other jobs, you have to still treat your brand like your full-time job. And it's just what you said. It's like, okay, well, that means that nights and weekends are still
Yeah,
going to be work. Yes.
yeah. But at the same time, it felt more like a hobby and
Yeah.
like a stress relief and something like that.
hmm
And now that I realize that I depend on what I
hmm
sell, it's different.
Yeah.
It's different. I think, and I think you can feel me.
Yeah. Do
Um,
you do you feel like it um do you feel like it's more a push for you to prioritize your time? Do you still feel like it's a stress relief when you're working on your items, or do you just feel like you have to prioritize your time differently because it's your business?
yeah, I have to prioritize my time.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's different. I really enjoy working on this, but I think, as I said, it will be easier when we don't have to work on the van every
hmm
day. Yeah.
Yeah, I've watched your videos, and if you're watching this, you have to go check out her channel and watch these like time lapses of them working, because they are putting in some work on this van.
We
And
do.
it's very inspiring for anyone who is trying to, who is thinking about that. I think watching that progress that you guys are willing to share, from the bare bones, breaking this thing down and building it back up, because you start to really appreciate how much work goes into that. It's not
Definitely.
as simple as just buying the vehicle and going. Um, so I've really loved watching that. Um,
Thank you.
so let's talk a little bit about inspiration. So even from the beginning, when you first started, you picked crochet back up again and you started creating these custom pieces. What are some of the things that inspire you when you're creating and designing and all of that?
Well, back then, it inspired me to love people. So
That's
when
awesome.
yeah, because I knew what the person feels like for me, and I knew what the person kind of likes and which colors and which kind of stuff they like. And I really, yeah, I was thinking in colors and every different things, And love really inspired me to create items for my loved ones, actually. And now I think once I started crocheting very, very much, it kind of started being a source that never really runs dry. And I can't even stop it. I don't know where all the ideas come from, but they are keeping and keeping and keeping to come. Yeah, sometimes I wake up in the morning and I know exactly what I need to do next. And usually I have 5 or 6 or more designs in my head which I want to release. And I just have to work and get them done. And sometimes, very often actually, they change in the middle of the designing process, but the basic ideas are there.
Yeah.
And,
do you write your ideas down, or do you have anywhere that you keep these ideas, or do you just keep it all in your head?
I used to keep it all in my head, but at the time my head is all over the place, so I started to putting some sketches, and yeah, just sketch it in a very not beautiful way, actually. Just throw the sketch there so that I don't have to keep it in my mind. Yeah, but not so much. I think only when I start writing a pattern, I start actually taking notes and really thinking about it.
Yeah, I feel the same on the sketching. It wasn't until some of my very, very recent designs that I actually started sketching out shapes, like just to kind of, get that in my head. But I'm the same way. They're not very pretty. They're not. I used to watch the designer show, the Project Runway. And I loved watching them sketch out their designs because it was so beautiful. And they all had like these different ways of showing like the stick figures of like the women or the men. And then they would draw it. And I was like, oh, mine's like a 5-year-old trying to sketch out designs. But I think it's really interesting that you do that. And I feel like with your designs, especially like some of the more like lingerie type sets, I feel like that would be really interesting to kind of design out the shapes of what you're trying to create, because you use a lot of different shapes.
I do. And I don't even know where they come from.
So I feel like you're out in nature a lot. So like if you look at your photos, you guys go to some really, really beautiful places. Do you feel like any of that inspiration comes from being outdoors more or being in some of these really beautiful places? Do you feel like some of that inspiration is drawn from that?
Maybe. But usually nature inspires me to take specific photos.
Okay.
Rather than the actual design. And I tend to be inspired by body shapes, by different kind of body shapes to design, actually, because I am thinking about stuff like, how could this fit a person with this kind of body, or this kind of body, or this kind of gender, or how would this work with the body? And this really challenged me in a good way and inspires me to create and try out different things and try to think of ways to make this specific fit look good on everybody. So that's kind of like my motivation and inspiration at the same time. Yeah. And nature is just a very beautiful way to finish a project, and taking pictures. Yeah.
That's true. I do feel like you use a lot of earth tones. Is some of that having to do with the fact that is that inspired by your own color palette, or is that just inspired by what you have access to? Because I know we talked about you using secondhand yarn. So do you feel like there's a balance there, a preference, or is it just whatever you can get your hands on?
Whatever I can get my hands on. Yeah. And I always think of materials rather than colors, because if it's the most beautiful color ever, but I don't like working with the material, I will say no to it. And I will challenge myself in picking a color I don't really love so much, because I like the material more.
when you find yarn that you really like working with, but you're not a fan of the color, do you tend to make things for other people, like stuff that you'd sell versus what you would photograph on your feed?
Yes,
Yeah,
exactly.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and I love that when you're talking about when you're designing being inspired by different body styles. I think that's really refreshing to hear because I know for me, I find myself in a situation where I make something that I really love for myself. And then I have to try to figure out, okay, how can I now make this pattern into something that will fit other body sizes instead of starting with the inspiration of what can I create to be beautiful on all of these bodies instead of just what do I want to make for me. So I think that's really refreshing because I think
Okay, thanks.
a lot of people, you'll design something and you say, well, I just have to make it bigger or I have to make it smaller or I have to, and instead it's like, well, what if I start with this body that's not my body? And do you find yourself doing that? Have you created a piece to like started with a body type other than your own to create something?
Not really, but I could try. I
Yeah.
think it's quite difficult actually
Yeah.
because you are around yourself all the time.
Hmm.
Like, for example, I questioned why I sell in my shop most of the ready-made items are more or less my size, like one
Hmm.
or two sizes up, one or two sizes down. But that's only because I have a limited amount of yarn and
Hmm.
I used to start with me thinking, oh, maybe I won't sell this stuff. And then at
Hmm.
least I have some clothing for myself, you
Yeah.
know?
True. Yeah.
But yeah, if I was a bigger or smaller size, yeah, my shop would be with bigger or smaller sizes.
Hmm.
But when designing, yeah, I I try to do this method and think of some
Yeah.
very different bodies. But it's difficult because you try your stuff on, right? Like when
Hmm.
designing, you try,
Yep.
does it work on me? Hmm?
Yeah.
So it's difficult. It's difficult.
So, how do you plan for other sizes in your design? So, I know that a lot of people use different methods when they're trying to figure out how to create inclusive designs. What's kind of, let's like walk through your process of how you plan out and create different sizes for your designs. Is it based on measurements or math, or what are some of the things that you do?
Measurement, because I'm
Hmm.
afraid of math. I really am. Yeah,
Yeah.
I just try to find out ways to measure the body so that it could apply to everyone,
Hmm.
which isn't the easiest thing ever, but as a result, I have some really, really good patterns that
Hmm.
work extremely well. And very often I was afraid in the beginning of testing phases,
Hmm.
and I was like, oh, will this work?
Yeah.
And then I was so surprised that nobody ever complained about the waist,
Yeah.
and
Have
it's
have
fitted
you been surprised by some of the final pieces, like how they actually look on other bodies?
definitely. And
Yeah.
you?
Yes. And I think that it is either one way or the other. I haven't had a design that's totally failed yet. And I say yet because I want to keep designing and you never know. You never know
Yeah.
how things will turn out until someone actually tries them. But um, one of my newest designs, which is like a summer top, and I don't do a lot of summery type stuff. So I was really nervous, like you said, like sending it out to people and hoping that it would be um, good. And as I started getting the photos back, there was something about the way that it hugged everyone's figure that was actually really, really flattering. And I was blown away because I was a little worried that it might be boxy and not as nice looking, especially like I'm very small chested. And so people who have larger chests, I was like, I don't know how this is going to lay on them. Um, and I feel like it was my moment because I know for me, when I saw is it the Fiore top, the like short sleeve drawstring, as I started seeing those photos come in from testers, I was like, oh my God, this is so good. Like it looks so good on everybody. And I feel like that's what all testers, I mean, all designers should aspire to, is like you should try to create things that do just look stunning on everyone, you know? But that's what I
Yeah.
felt. When I started getting my pictures back, I was like, this is like when I was looking at her pictures of that top coming in, because they actually do look really nice on everyone. So,
Thank you. Yes,
yeah,
it's the most beautiful thing for me to see
yeah.
that stuff works out. And I have to say, in the case of the Fiore top, I was playing it safe with the shape,
Hmm.
actually.
Yeah.
And instead, I did some extra with the stitches. And
Hmm.
yeah, because this kind of interlocking method is quite something new for people.
Yeah.
And
It's beautiful. Just the
yeah,
pattern work is gorgeous.
it's very
Yeah.
nice. I'm so glad to have found these new methods of crochet actually.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How long did it take you to, let's just for that pattern in general, from start to finish, how long do you feel like it took you to create that pattern?
Do you mean start to finish from the very beginning to the end of the testing?
Yes. Just when
Yes,
it popped in your head and you were like, I need to write this down. I need to create this.
maybe 2.5 months.
That's not that bad.
No?
No, just because I feel like it is a very intricate pattern. So the fact that you were able to make it work, you had the idea, wrote the idea down, or, started creating it, and then got the whole pattern ready and got it out to testers. And then like, that's actually a really good timeline. I feel like you said you were talking about needing to be more focused, I think, with like your business. That's pretty focused. That's really good. Yeah, to
But
keep yourself on track.
yeah, okay. Thank you for saying that.
Yeah.
I feel it slows down from pattern to pattern right now.
Hmm.
And the Aura laundry set, which I released, I think, last week,
Hmm.
took some extra time.
Yeah.
And especially now, I think I'm going to have quite a gap because the design I am creating right now is still in the phase of me creating a prototype.
Yep.
Nothing is written down. And I couldn't pressure myself because I felt there was so much else to do.
Hmm.
And yeah, yeah.
There's definitely balance there, because you don't want it to turn into forcing yourself to create, because I think then the work will suffer. I know I'm the same way. I love when it works out that I have a design that is almost ready to test and a test that's almost finishing. And then you can kind of have it go back and forth. But like right now, I have a pattern, and it can be both ways. Like right now, I have a pattern that's finished testing, but I have like three ideas that I'm almost ready to write the pattern out. So now I'm having to decide, okay, well, which one do I actually want to focus on? But then
Mm,
there's other times where a pattern will be almost ready to release and I have nothing, and I'm just, I have ideas, like you said, lots and lots of ideas, but nothing that's ready to go out to test or be written down.
mm.
So I totally understand.
Yeah, it's we are just we are not machines, and
Yes,
we are very creative working, and it's difficult to plan it.
yeah,
Yeah, which makes
definitely.
income very difficult too.
So do you, what made you jump from, like, what was that moment when you were like, I need to start designing versus only selling finished products?
COVID.
Yeah, that was easy.
Yeah, yeah, because I've been signed up to many festivals, and I
Hmm.
packed 2 or 3 suitcases full of beautiful handmade stuff from me, which I made in the winter before COVID came.
Hmm.
And then I realized I couldn't go. And yeah, I finally decided to um, try it. And so I
Yeah.
tried designing for the very first time, which I wasn't so excited about in the very beginning, to be honest. And
Yeah.
you?
It's intimidating. And I think that some of it is because if you go looking for tips on releasing patterns, there's so much that people say that you have to have in order for you to have like a really good pattern, that I think sometimes it makes you feel like, well, if I can't, if I can't do every single size for every single person, that I shouldn't put it out there. And I think that that intimidates a lot of people to not even try. Um, I know for me, my first pattern only went from an extra small to an extra large. And it was a crop top. So I think I had testers up to like a double D. I can't remember the band size, but, um, now looking back, I'm like, I wish that it had been more size inclusive, but at the time I was still learning and I was still growing. And every single pattern moving forward has been a learning opportunity for me to um, find better testers, the ones who really understand what is needed to make sure that the sizes are going to fit everyone. Growing a following, because it's really hard. If you've only got 300 followers, then it's hard to do a call for testers. You don't have any credibility yet. You don't have, people don't know whether or not they're going to enjoy working with you. Um, and your knowledge is limited. Like, I didn't know how to size up a pattern. I did what you did. I either did measurements, or I had friends who were local who would try them on and tell me whether or not they
Mm.
fit. Because I didn't want to deal with math either, you know. And so I feel like you said, I was excited because I wanted to get my work out there, but I was also very nervous because I didn't want to be perceived as, someone who that person shouldn't be designing, you know. And I don't know if you felt the same
Mm.
way, if it was a different feeling for you when you started.
In some ways, it was very similar, and in some ways, it was different because at this point, I had so many designs on my Instagram feed that people always were like, you have to write patterns.
Yeah.
Please write patterns. I was getting DMs every single day. And I was
Wow.
so intimidated. And I was like, no, first of all, I don't want to share my designs,
Yeah. Yes, true.
which changed in the meantime a lot. And I
Yeah.
am a lot better with letting go and sharing my work. But in the very
Yeah.
beginning, to be honest, I was like, no, it's my idea and my design, and I don't want to see a billion others of
Yeah.
these out there. But it really changed, and I really learned how fulfilling it could be to create something that other people enjoy. And
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, but at the same time, pattern writing was something completely, it was so far away from my own world because I never worked with patterns.
Mm-hmm.
I haven't even looked at one pattern.
Yeah.
And yeah, when I decided to give it a try, I was texting other designers and I was like,
Mm-hmm.
would you mind me having a look at your designs? Would you mind telling me
Mm-hmm.
something about the way you make it? And then I really fast realized and understand that I couldn't do the math thing.
Mm-hmm.
I couldn't. And I
Mm-hmm.
wouldn't enjoy it, no way.
Mm-hmm.
Because all the calculating and stuff, and then still it's it's like, yeah, people have to decide, oh, am I an X large or 2X, or and
Mm-hmm.
maybe they decide wrong. And I was just overwhelmed by all the numbers and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, my very first design was only made for size small to medium because
Mm-hmm.
I made it for myself, and then I
Yep.
plan to make it in other sizes, like individual patterns.
Yep.
But I didn't enjoy this so much. And
Mm-hmm.
then I started making made to measure patterns. The
Yeah.
second pattern is my first made to measure pattern. Yeah.
Yeah. That's awesome, because I haven't figured out. I need to look more into that, because it's like you said, um, when I first started, I didn't like following patterns. I'd purchased a few and tried, but it wasn't really my thing. I always kind of wanted to take it and do what I wanted with it. Um, but uh, I did start purchasing patterns just to see what people did, like the structure and how they wrote their terminology and all of that. And I felt like that was really helpful. But I have not, I've been meaning to purchase some made to measure patterns just to see how it's done because I've always done it by the math and it's so completely different. And I feel like that might help me because I want to start making some more like bralette style items, like super simple items. But those are really hard to fit into measurement categories, like extra small and small, because some people are like, I'm a 32, but I'm a double D. And I'm like, I don't know how to how to fit that into a category. So I feel like the measurement style of patterns would actually be really helpful for that.
Absolutely, because it's the more figure hugging a pattern is, the more difficult it's
Hmm.
for the designing process, in my opinion.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, let's I wanted to talk a little bit about your secondhand yarn. So, what's the process there? What are some of like the really interesting ways that you've come across secondhand yarn? What are some of the ways you seek it out? Are there tools that you use to find people who have yarn? Like, what are some of the ways that you source your yarn?
Hmm. Let me just open the window for a second.
Yes.
Just
Because you're in your van, aren't you?
yes, I
Yeah.
always am,
Yeah.
and it's very warm here.
Yes.
Um, so I used to buy my yarns at flea markets
Okay.
or secondhand shops, or yes, things like that. And sometimes yarns were donated to me from elderly people who didn't do the craft anymore or weren't able to
Hmm.
crochet or knit anymore. I also frogged stuff. I
Yes.
frogged stuff which still looked very nice, but maybe the item itself wasn't that good anymore.
Was it stuff
Um,
that you made? Were you frogging items you made, or you would purchase items that were crocheted and you would frog them?
Both.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah. Or I found something, or something was gifted to me, and I thought, oh, maybe I can do something different from
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
Um, Also on there's a special platform. I don't know if it's only in Europe or in Germany, but when I still lived there, I used some kind of eBay platform, which is where you
Hmm.
can find local people and you can pick up stuff there,
Oh, that's
old
great.
stuff, secondhand stuff, and
Yeah.
yeah, this way I got a lot of yarn and beautiful quality actually too.
That's
Yeah,
awesome. Have you
yeah.
ever gotten to a point where you're like, I need yarn and I don't have enough, and like now I feel like I'm in trouble, or has that never been a problem?
Yes, I've
Yeah.
been there, especially when I made some very big projects like long dresses,
Hmm.
and I was really struggling with whether to change the whole concept by undoing like the half of the skirt or something, or using a different color or
Hmm.
a different material, which would have looked very weird in my opinion, or buying new yarn. But I always found a way because I am pretty stubborn actually,
Yeah.
and I am like, no, I will stick to secondhand yarn.
Well, I think
Yeah,
once you've been doing it, once you've been using secondhand yarn for that long, it probably becomes easier to be stubborn because you're like, if I've been doing it this long, then there's no reason that I should buy new yarn, right? Is that kind of how you had to purchase a lot of secondhand yarn, or is it mostly like donated or things? What is it like a balance? What do you feel like you've done more of?
purchase
Yeah.
the most actually, yeah, because this way I found people who sold their yarn in quite big packages, which was so worth it for me, and then they shipped
Yeah.
it across Germany or yeah, sometimes I could pick it up if it wasn't too far, but yeah, most of it was purchased actually.
I kind of wondered how difficult that made because I know that you like to make really big projects. So I feel like that has to be one of your toughest things is finding enough of the same yarn to create dresses and things that are larger.
Yeah, so difficult, so difficult. And always when I used to have some saved up money from work,
Hmm.
from the tips or stuff, I
Yeah.
used to check out the whole area for big amounts of yarn. And when I found something, I wasn't even thinking so much about the color or stuff like that. I was like,
Hmm.
okay, that's an uh, quite a good amount of yarn, and I can do something great with it, and I will buy this and make it work no matter what. And yes, it worked out. So
Yeah.
until now, I'm pretty happy with this.
Yeah. That's awesome. What if someone said, I think this is so cool, I want to start using secondhand yarn. I don't want to buy new yarn anymore. What would be like your top advice for people if they wanted to stop buying new yarn and they wanted to only use secondhand yarn?
Where to get it?
Just
Yes.
your where to get it or, how that has worked for you, like if you found any tricks that have made it easier, to find what you need, anything, whatever.
Researching on the internet really helps, and um, changing your perspective on how fast something has to be there for you, and how being more patient about stuff,
Hmm.
and trying to improvise and try to design around the materials you have. Like if you have only maybe 400 grams of yarn, what
Hmm.
can you do with this?
Yeah.
Be inspired by the lack of material you have. It really helps, and yeah, you probably will design things you wouldn't have think or wouldn't have thought of before.
So do you feel like it's made you more creative or pushed you to be more creative in different ways?
Yes, I think so, especially because in the very beginning I didn't like combining colors,
Yeah.
so I was even more limited. But now
Well,
I'm
and
a little more open-minded about it.
and I think something really beautiful about designing and releasing your patterns. Um, I know for me, and I don't know if it's been the same way for you, is that you end up getting inspired by your testers' projects. Like I have been so inspired by the colors that people have chosen and the types of yarn that they've chosen. And I don't know if that's been the same way for you.
Absolutely. Even the way they wore the items for the pictures. Sometimes it
Yeah.
made me look like, wow, that's an amazing drape. And I
Yeah.
have to create something inspired by this,
Yeah.
which is very funny,
That's
actually.
awesome.
Yeah. And it's amazing. It's one thing that makes me really enjoy working with testers, actually.
Hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's see. Oh, I wanted to talk about your photos. We talked about this a little bit before
Yeah.
when we had our little chat, but I think your photos are gorgeous, and I think that
Thank
a lot
you.
of people will talk to me about the photos on my feed, and for me, I had the background in photography, and so that's really helped me. But you told me that you only use your phone, and I would love for you to share a little bit about that, of how that evolved and how you've you know, really found a aesthetic for your feed because it's very cohesive and how you've done that.
Thank you. Well,
Yeah.
I have to give all the credits to my partner right there, because I, when you scroll back to the very beginnings of my feed, my pictures were pretty plain, and I just tried to do them myself.
Hmm.
But um, my partner actually started getting into this whole thing um, when I started taking Azramati a little more serious.
Hmm.
And then he started to take pictures of me with just a normal phone camera.
Mm-hmm.
And when COVID came and working situation was very hard, he actually started to learn editing,
Mm-hmm.
which really ties everything together in a much, much nicer way than it used to, because yeah, he's editing the pictures, and this way they always look very similar in style.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but we both aren't professionals at all. We are just always inspired by what I make, and maybe this or this would be nice, and then next time we are outside we try something, and
Mm-hmm.
it started being a lot of fun, but it's not the most professional way.
Does he use Lightroom? I think we talked about that. Does he use the
Yes,
Lightroom app?
exactly.
Yep.
And the free version even.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and if you guys don't know, if you're watching, the Lightroom app is free, and you actually have a lot of space from what I'm hearing. I had been paying for Lightroom, and I just now switched over to the free app just to test out what you can and can't do and how much space you have. And I was very surprised by the amount of stuff that you can do and the amount of space that you have. And so, but yes, figuring out your editing, and that really helps with your feed for anyone who's interested in that and playing around with the Lightroom app and seeing what you can do. So when it comes to photographing your items, do you ever do like a bulk shoot? So like, would you all at one time maybe try on different outfits and take the photos at the same time? Or do you usually just photograph like one item in one place and just take a bunch of photos? Or how does that process work for you?
Both. Right now, as
Yeah.
I am mostly designing, it's most
Mm-hmm.
of the times only one item.
Mm-hmm.
But when I still created stuff to sell it later, we took pictures of like 10 different items,
Yeah.
or just what I made in the last couple of weeks.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
What platforms do you only sell on your website, or do you have your patterns or items available on other places?
Yes, I do have my website, and I quite recently started to be a member of the Makers of Color Collective.
Okay, that's awesome.
Yeah, and Not Bad Brit, which who is making the whole thing work and came up with the idea, really has this beautiful website where she presents all these makers and dyers and testers, and it's a perfect place to go to find quite a diverse group of testers, for example, or
Yeah,
of designers, or dyers.
that's
So yeah, there is an option to share patterns too,
mm-hmm.
which is amazing. And today I launched my Patreon page. So this is
Oh, how
also,
exciting.
yeah,
Well, talk about that a little bit. What's your plans for that?
I do offer 4 different tiers at the time.
Mm-hmm.
And it's all about behind the scenes, exclusive content that I won't share on Instagram or other platforms, patterns. In the
Mm-hmm.
most tiers, you will have access to my patterns, and also some kind of a more private contact to
Mm-hmm.
really get in touch with me and talk to me while working on the patterns I am giving you. And also like tips and tricks on sustainability, how to
Yeah.
upcycle stuff, how to use old materials to make something nice and new, how to shop sustainable, how to shop secondhand for your own clothing, maybe change old clothing and stuff like this. And also a little more on how living in the van and how traveling with the van and still working is
Mm-hmm.
for me. And yeah, it's pretty much about designing and getting more in touch with me as a person, and having that opportunity to actually talk to me while making my designs, and
Yeah.
watching all these videos I already did upload there. Yeah.
That's awesome. Can you upload, are the videos uploaded through Patreon or do you have to use like YouTube or Vimeo or some other app?
Yeah, you have to use another app. And I
Okay.
am using YouTube, so my
Hmm.
actual YouTube channel is empty, but
Hmm.
I have to upload the videos there. So
Okay.
I upload them there, but only people who have access to the link
Yeah.
will be able to see. So Patreon shares my videos with the help of YouTube, actually.
That's
Yeah.
awesome. You have to
Yeah.
be really excited for that to have kicked
I
off.
am so excited and
Yeah.
also a little nervous because
Yeah.
I put a lot of work in there, and
Yeah.
I would love this thing to work out because it's such an amazing opportunity to go a little deeper into this
Hmm.
whole process. Yeah.
Definitely. Well, we are, let's see, we've only got a few more minutes in the hour, and I didn't want to keep you too long, but I would love for you if you want to share just any advice you have for people. Maybe they're either just learning to crochet, or maybe they're just starting to maybe want to design, but what would kind of be your little words of wisdom that you'd have for makers or designers or anyone that's in this community?
Mm, be brave and at the same time be yourself, and don't shy away from trying something new.
I love that so much. Yes, and I feel like you embody that. You really do. Just being who you are, being happy and trying all of these new things. And I've loved watching your channel grow, and I'm really excited to continue keeping in touch with you. And I hope we can do this again because I have fun getting to chat with you, and
I would
I'm
absolutely love to.
yeah, and I can't wait to see new designs. I know we've both got new designs that are coming, so it's going to be really exciting. Um, but yes, if you guys are still watching, be sure to follow Azramati at Azramati, and check out her stuff. She's amazing, and I'm just so glad that you were able to come on here with me live. And this is going to be the first one I actually get to save. Yay!
Yay!
So this will be available on my IGTV once I get done and upload it. But thank you again, and I hope you have a beautiful, beautiful weekend. And I know you probably will be working on the van, I'm guessing.
Of
So
course.
work hard, and have an awesome, awesome weekend.
Thank you so much for inviting me. I'm
Of
so honored
course.
to be able to speak to you.
Oh, thank you so much. We'll talk again soon.
Yeah.
Bye.
Bye.